Hello, Ken. Very nice meeting you, and great that you are willing to do this interview with me here today in Malden. Maybe we can start with the countries and products you're dealing in and you're active in. Which are the countries Danze is trading in most, and the kind of products you're sourcing?
We're sourcing product from North America, from Europe, from West Africa, from Asia. So basically most of the countries apart from South America where we're not active.
Okay. And the kind of products you're importing?
We're importing sawn timber, solid kitchen worktops, timber, flooring, doors, stair components.
Mm-hmm.
Just a range of items. We're not just as a Danze company, we are a sales organisation, but as a group we're mainly a producer of product.
Mm-hmm. And which countries do you sell to?
We sell only in the UK and Ireland.
Okay. And when you're buying products in Africa, does it make a difference for you to buy from a small company or from a bigger player? Are there differences in the time and effort due diligence takes, for example, or lead times, reliability, that sort of issues?
In principle, the size of the company is irrelevant, but in reality we tend to buy from the larger companies purely because they've got a more transparent and tangible origin of product, and we buy exclusively from companies that have their own forest areas, which tend to be the larger companies.
Okay. And from your perspective, what are the main challenges facing small and medium-sized producers want to sell on the European market?
I think the major problem is obviously access to the market, and when you look at the UK market, our own due diligence policy plus that policy of most of our customers dictates that they insist upon a VLC standard as a minimum requirement. So they'll only buy product that comes with something like a Rainforest Alliance VLC or a Bureau Veritas OLB certificate.
So for SME companies to become more attractive for European buyers, they would have to have VLC?
I think certainly for the UK, yes, because it's become the default position for due diligence now. Because obviously you're in a very high risk country, and if you've got a third party verification system that exists that's going to do a lot of your due diligence for you in a credible way, it makes sense to use it.
Yeah, okay. And is that also one of the reasons why African producers still mainly supply primary and secondary wood products to European markets? Or are there any other specific challenges when it comes to producing and supplying tertiary goods from
I think that you've got the logistical challenges in Africa are different to some of the other tropical countries. First of all, you've got a lot of political instability, which makes it very difficult to make any significant long-term investment. You've got a very diverse range of species, which will tick some boxes in some places and not the boxes in other places. You've got the logistical problems that the forest is often a long way from the port, so you've got handling issues, etc. So I think there's lots of different challenges. You haven't got a local market on the doorstep as well, like you have in some other countries.
Is there anything the European trade can do to support smaller producer companies in Africa? Or are there any initiatives you know of or you're aware of?
I think that obviously sharing expertise and knowledge is important. Encouraging them to move towards the VLC is critical for them. I think that there are various schemes that have been available to help them with their due diligence and to help them with transparency of information, etc. But I'm not sure if some of those schemes have had a lifespan and they've come and gone, but I'm sure that there's funds available through the European Union in some form.
Okay. Maybe we can speak about more specifically about due diligence. What challenges are you facing in procuring documentation to provide negligible risk of your timber imports?
The biggest problem is credibility of the information that you're getting. As I said before, we've been doing due diligence for a long time now, so when we first started to ask questions, it was very, very difficult to get answers, because people were wondering, why are you asking these questions? You can trust us, we know what we're doing, etc., etc. But people now realise, even before the EUTR, that we're handling a very precious raw material, so we have to understand the supply chain fully and the implications of what we're doing in these tropical supply areas. It's all about, the first challenge is wanting to do it, and it being seen as an opportunity for your business to position yourself as a credible supplier of sustainable timber products. Because it's not something, I don't think, that unless it's part of your DNA and it's part of what you stand for as a business, I don't think you're going to get the real benefits from it. But we've certainly seen as a business that it is very much a selling point. Mm-hmm. And obviously with the EUTR, our customers see it as a major challenge and an issue and a concern. So in many ways, the fact that we've got a robust due diligence system, they almost see it as a safety blanket. It's like an insurance policy. If they come to Danza for their timber products, they're going to be assured of a secure and sustainable supply.
And what type of documents do you typically collect for your due diligence, and how do you verify their authenticity?
Well, I can show you on the screen, if you'd like me to, some of the documents that we look for.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, so let's have a look at the due diligence process in more detail. What we have on the screen now is the template that we use to assess all of our suppliers, whether they're low risk or high risk. So this is the information that we've gathered for EFO in Congo, which is one of our suppliers. Happens to be a sister company managed by Interholco. We've obviously identified that we have country of origin Congo, country of harvest Congo, both high risk aspects to the supply chain. With it being a high risk country of origin, country of harvest, we need to have the subnational information regarding forest origin, which we have, being UFA and Gombe. We've got 4 high risk species that's coming out of the forest, so everything in that access to information box is considered as very high risk. Looking at aspects that may result in reducing the risk through the EUTR process, question number 1, has the country of harvest a FLEGT licence system in place? The answer is obviously no. Is the country of origin of purchase an EU country? Again, obviously no. And does a CITES certificate exist against any of those species, which again is a no. So we're still very much at high risk status. So that's the information gathering aspect of the due diligence process. Next aspect is risk assessment, assessing the information to identify where the risk exists. So again, we've got 4 high risk species, we've got a high risk country, we've got a country in the Congo with a Transparency International Corruption Perception Index of 22, which suggests that there's a significant risk of corruption existing in the supply chain. Congo has got no UN sanctions imposed against it, so that's not a concern. But on the positive side, there is a Rainforest Alliance verified legal compliance certificate that exists, which should obviously lower the risk. Another very important aspect is the complexity of the supply chain. This supply chain that we're looking at now is obviously quite simple. It goes from forest to forest to sawmill that exists within the forest area to straight to sister company in Europe, straight to Danza UK. So we've got very few links in the supply chain. And that's how we tend to buy our product from Africa. We're buying it from European-based businesses who have their own sawmills and their own forest areas in Africa. So we have a very short supply chain. When you look at some of the issues that have been in regarding the EUTR and credibility of origin certain products in the past, there's been an element of quite an extended supply chain with wood passing through 4 or 5 different hands before they've reached the end consumer, which obviously complicates the due diligence process immensely. So my advice to anybody is to keep the process as short and simple as possible.
So what types of documents would now typically come with a shipment from your sister company in Congo?
Okay, well in a high-risk country in general, it's absolutely essential to have a total understanding right through the supply chain. So the first document you'd need is a confirmation of forest concession area, ideally with a map. You also need to have confirmation of an approved forestry management plan existing, confirmation of an annual felling permit, which will give you confirmation that their exploitation levels are accurate and permissible, confirmation that tax and forest royalty payments are up to date, transport documents and export documents are also available. So basically you've got a whole chain of information right through from when the timbers a standing tree right through to when it leaves the country. Having looked at the type of documents that we gather in the due diligence process, the big problem is how do we know whether they're genuine documents or not? And that is a very, very difficult question, and unfortunately everyone's going to be disappointed I haven't got the full answer. But it's all about mitigating risk. I think that we consider the due diligence process the same way that we consider health and safety in the business, that it's a process that you have to go through, and it's about identifying the risk and mitigating the risk as much as is possible. Now obviously you're dealing in countries that are far away with different laws, different traditions, different cultures, and I would suggest that anybody with any sort of sensible approach to this would understand that it's absolutely impractical and impossible to 100% exclude any form of risk. I think from our perspective we view it very much from the perspective that it's all about having a process in place so that you can prove that you've used all reasonable endeavours.
Another importer, European importer, recently told the GTF that due diligence requirements were becoming tighter as the competent authorities now have more experience with checks on operators, and checks are becoming more frequent too. And he also felt that as a consequence of this, flag licensed timber was becoming a more attractive option. Do you feel the same way? Do you think this is true?
I totally agree that the level of investigation and the quality of the questioning we're seeing from the competent authority has improved dramatically over the last 4 years. They've obviously got to understand and appreciate a lot of the dynamics in the timber trade and in the various supply chains. So obviously they've got a much better potential for understanding the strengths and weaknesses. And when you look at the quality of their questioning, it's much more robust and to be taken much more seriously than it was at the start of the process. Now obviously from a default perspective, as far as meeting EUTR obligations, FLEGT is heaven sent.
The first flag licensed timber has now really become available from Indonesia at the end of last year. Did you feel this having an impact on European demand for Indonesian wood products? Has that picked up at all?
It's difficult for me to answer that because we're not particularly active in Indonesia, but with a trading hat on, you can never move far away from the usual commercial factors of quality, service and price. Now obviously FLEGT gives some assurances regarding legality, etc. But Indonesia will still have to tick those other 3 boxes, and it will still also have to put out products which do the job and are desired by the marketplace. And I think as well that when you look at FLEGT, it's important to bear in mind that whilst it's to be applauded and is certainly a big step forward, it's still very early days and it hasn't stood the test of time yet. So I would suggest that we need to take it one day at a time and see where we are moving forward.